The United States, Canada, and Australia resembled three close siblings. They battled side by side, conducted business together, and shared intelligence with one another. Yet today, one of those siblings stepped back from the shared table. Australia didn't merely decline Donald Trump's recent requests. They didn't simply brush off his warnings. They took a far bolder step. They reached out to Mark Carney. And it wasn't a casual conversation. They extended an invitation for the Canadian Prime Minister to speak before their parliament. That's a distinction typically granted only to the President of the United States. Trump attempted to corner Canada. He sought to pressure Ottawa into yielding, but Carney held firm. Rather than backing down, he extended a hand across the Pacific. Now the fallout is slamming into the White House with tremendous force. Over the coming minutes, I'll explain precisely how this partnership fractured, why Trump suddenly appears isolated on the global scene, and why Australia's particular decision could affect your finances if you hold US dollars. This goes beyond mere foreign policy. It's a major shift in worldwide alignments, and you're witnessing it unfold live. So, what precisely occurred today? Early this morning, the Office of Australia's Prime Minister issued a statement that blindsided Washington entirely. They revealed that Mark Carney will head to Australia next week to give a landmark joint speech to their parliament. You have to grasp the significance of protocol here. Inviting foreign heads of government to address your legislature isn't done lightly. It's a powerful message. Normally, the initial outreach from an Australian leader goes straight to the US president. Typically, the premier state visit involves a meeting with the occupant of the Oval Office. Not now. This time, Australia examined the disorder emerging from Trump's White House, the tariff warnings, the unpredictable posts, the insistence on complete allegiance, and then considered Mark Carney's steady, thoughtful approach in Canada. They made their decision. They opted for the mature presence in the room. This invitation represents a clear repudiation of Trump's America First approach. We know Trump's inner circle has been pressing Australia intensely behind closed doors. They urged Australia to support Trump's trade conflict with Canada. They pushed for Canberra to participate in the isolation effort. They sought a solid front against Ottawa to compel Carney to submit. But rather than aligning with Trump's trade offensive, Australia joined Carney's grouping instead. This strikes at the core because Australia has long been viewed as America's most dependable partner. They serve as the southern pillar of the US-led network. If Trump cannot maintain Australia's loyalty, if he cannot keep them aligned, then he has lost sway over the English-speaking sphere. Carney plans to discuss resource reliability and the steadiness of middle powers. That's the diplomatic phrasing. In plain terms, he's traveling to help construct a global economy that operates independently of Donald Trump's approval. The White House is deeply angered by this. You may wonder if this truly matters so much. Leaders travel and meet frequently, don't they? Not quite. Examine the evidence. Look at the timing. When you line up the details, it becomes evident this was an intentional, calculated rebuff to Donald Trump. Consider piece of evidence 1, the AUKUS omission. Recall AUKUS, that enormous nuclear submarine arrangement among the US, UK, and Australia represented the pinnacle of American sway in the Pacific. Trump has warned he might suspend that agreement unless Australia contributes more financially. He's wielded it as bargaining power. He believed they were locked in. Yet notice the language in Australia's official release today. The US wasn't referenced at all, not a single mention. Instead, they highlighted Commonwealth ties, essential minerals, and strategic coordination with Canada. By welcoming Carney, Australia indicates they possess an alternative path. Should Trump scrap the submarine pact, they won't plead. They'll shift direction toward the leader who excels at managing an economy. Now, piece of evidence 2, the currency movements. Trump has floated a blanket 10% tariff on all nations, allies included. He views this as strength. He believes it enriches America, but observe market reactions. Since word of Carney's trip surfaced, the Australian dollar strengthened relative to the US dollar. Why? Markets detest unpredictability. Trump embodies disorder. Carney embodies reliability. Investors are wagering that a Canada-Australia partnership, commanding huge shares of global uranium, lithium, and gold, offers greater security than a turbulent U.S. economy governed by late-night messages. Capital is genuinely flowing away from Trump's instability toward Carney's steadiness. That's tangible proof. And piece of evidence 3, Trump's own response. No speculation needed on whether this stung him. He revealed it himself. Just 2 hours after the news broke, Trump went to his platform. No warm words, no mention of camaraderie. He launched into complaints about Australia freeloading and Canada being untrustworthy. He labeled the Australian Prime Minister feeble. He warned of reassessing all defense collaboration. That isn't how a confident leader behaves. That's how someone reacts when they realize they're being sidelined. When the U.S. president descends to insults against his nearest partners, it's because his influence to prevent their actions has vanished. He attempted to block this visit. Reports indicate his envoys bombarded Canberra repeatedly all week. Don't host Carney. Hold off until trade issues resolve. Don't humiliate the president. Australia disregarded those pleas. They issued the invitation regardless. That's the definitive proof. The intimidation factor surrounding Trump has dissolved. And without that fear, his authority fades away. So what's driving this change? Why is the planet's most powerful figure losing hold over his partners? Because Trump remains stuck in outdated thinking. He sees international relations as individual transactions, like property negotiations. He believes he can intimidate Canada one day, Australia the next, then Europe after that, and none will coordinate among themselves. He views himself as the center, with others merely extensions. But he overlooked something crucial. Those extensions can link up. Trump's whole approach depends on division. He requires others to feel isolated. He warned Canada they stood alone against the U.S. economy. He cautioned Australia they stood alone against China. He employs fear to ensure compliance. But excessive pressure prompts people to seek other options. Trump intensified tariffs on Canadian steel, expecting capitulation. Instead, Carney contacted Europe. Trump hinted at withdrawing NATO commitments, expecting payments. Instead, they began forging independent defense arrangements. Now, Trump pressured Australia's market access, expecting submission. Instead, they contacted Carney. See the recurring theme? Each time Trump wields threats, he doesn't gain submission. He sparks division. He's actively pushing his partners toward one another. He's unintentionally forming the coalition he dreads most, nations that can function without him. This marks a colossal leadership failure. Genuine leaders forge partnerships to amplify strength. Trump dismantles partnerships to display toughness. But toughness doesn't equal power. Toughness is mere bluster. Power means others answer your calls willingly. Currently, few want to engage Donald Trump because they anticipate what's coming: ultimatums, pressure, and unpredictability. In contrast, they observe Ottawa, a government that remains composed. They see a prime minister in Mark Carney who grasps international finance more thoroughly than anyone in Trump's circle. They see a collaborator who honors commitments. Trump is losing grip because he turned himself into a risk. In serious global affairs, you can intimidate or you can be dependable, but not both volatilely. That's excessive hazard. Australia calculated the odds. Provoking Trump carried danger, yet depending on him posed greater danger. So they diverged. With the barrier breached, expect more nations to follow. Now consider Mark Carney, because his approach here is brilliant and quite unlike typical political responses. Most leaders, when targeted by a U.S. president, become defensive. They rally national pride. They deliver fiery remarks. They posture for domestic audiences. Carney avoided all that. He skipped social media clashes with Trump. He issued no hollow warnings. He focused on results. Carney functions at another level. He recognizes that in today's era, influence isn't solely about military might like aircraft carriers. It's about dominating essential supply chains. It's about establishing trade frameworks. While Trump fixates on tariffs, tools from a prior century, Carney constructs a modern framework. He understands Canada and Australia jointly hold vast portions of the planet's uranium, potash, lithium, and rare earth elements, the building blocks for smartphones, weapon systems, electric vehicles, and tomorrow's technologies. By partnering with Australia, Carney forms a resource-dominant alliance. He's telling the globe, if you seek materials for progress, negotiate with us, and we won't permit Washington to set the terms unilaterally. This embodies middle power tactics, uniting nations large enough to resist coercion, yet not dominant enough to lead solo. He's weaving them into a block the United States must take seriously. It's understated, intricate, unexciting to drama seekers, yet remarkably potent. Trump plays basic checkers, capturing pieces and declaring victory loudly. Carney engages in multidimensional strategy, positioning elements on levels Trump overlooks. The contrast in methods stands out sharply. Trump insists on obedience. Carney provides mutual benefit. Trump seeks subordinates. Carney seeks equals. Trump discards agreements. Carney develops structures. That's precisely why Australia welcomed him, not out of affection for Canada, but because they place greater faith in Carney's skill than in Trump's disorder. This parliamentary appearance isn't celebratory. It's practical. They'll collaborate to outline trade structures that sidestep Washington's turmoil. They're rendering their economies independent. And ignoring a self-centered figure is the sharpest insult possible. You sideline him without confrontation. Let's step back. Why does this concern you? Why care about two leaders convening in Canberra? Because this marks when the price of American isolation begins affecting everyday life. For generations, the U.S. passport, dollar, and assurances represented the ultimate benchmark. That dependability restrained costs, sustained supply lines, and ensured American enterprises received global preference. But when nations resembling the U.S., culturally aligned, linguistically similar, historically allied, opt to circumvent the United States, that framework weakens. Should they begin exchanging vital minerals in non-dollar currencies or establishing norms disregarding U.S. preferences, operating costs in America climb. Consider everyday items, gadgets, batteries, crop nutrients. If Canada and Australia favor each other over the U.S., supplies tighten and prices increase. We're already witnessing effects. Firms halting U.S. factory plans due to uncertainty about securing inputs from Canada or Australia without steep duties. Instability functions as a hidden levy, and Trump just imposed one universally by heightening global unpredictability. This also reveals profound eroded confidence. If Australia questions Washington's reliability on defense and commerce, why wouldn't Japan, South Korea, or Germany follow? We're heading toward a scenario where the U.S. becomes detached, not fortified, but cut off from the seamless partnerships that fueled its prosperity. Trump vowed to restore global respect for America, but respect stems from trust, not intimidation. Respect means allies heed you. Right now, America's allies convene without invitation. They strategize without inclusion. They're shaping a tomorrow where the U.S. ranks as merely another prominent vocal nation, not the head of the Democratic alliance. Even if politics doesn't interest you, your finances do. An isolated America means higher costs across the board. One image from this morning lingers with me. Captured shortly after the statement, it showed split screens. On one, Donald Trump at an Ohio event, flushed, yelling about merchants and duties to a weary, agitated audience. On the other, footage from Canberra, a straightforward handshake between Australia's High Commissioner and Canada's representative. No raised voices, no crowds, just professionals in business attire, finalizing documents and resuming duties. That juxtaposition captures everything. One side produces clamor, the other delivers progress. One dismantles, the other constructs. Carney needed no volume to resonate in Australia. He simply needed composure. In 2026, composure itself feels radical. Where does this lead? We're entering risky ground. 3 potential paths emerge in coming weeks. Most probable, Trump strikes back. He imposes retaliatory duties on Australian exports like wine or meat. He posts derogatory remarks about their leader. He attempts retribution for disloyalty. but it will backfire. Australia anticipated this. Retaliation only deepens their alignment with Canada. It validates Carney's stance. Next, chain reaction. This terrifies the White House most. The UK observes closely. New Zealand watches, Japan pays attention. Success in Carney's Australia trip, perhaps a significant resource pact, could prompt London to host him next. Picture the Commonwealth economies banding together to shield against US volatility, an international buffer network excluding America that would devastate Washington's position. It's entirely plausible. Worst case, Trump escalates to military leverage. He threatens intelligence cutoffs. He jeopardizes shared fighter programs. That would represent the extreme measure, shattering Five Eyes cooperation, crippling U.S. surveillance, leaving America vulnerable in the Pacific, purely for personal satisfaction. Ordinarily, no president would risk that. But consider the individual involved. Trump rejects moderation. We're in perilous territory. Traditional norms have vanished. Canada and Australia refuse to pause for American recovery. They're advancing independently. The truly alarming aspect isn't their departure. It's that they may never return. This week stands as a historic pivot. You'll recall it as when the English-speaking bloc ceased orbiting Washington. Carney journeys to Australia not merely as prime minister, but as designer of a post-Trump era. Meanwhile, Trump rails futilely, puzzled why his intimidation no longer succeeds. The key question, does Mark Carney safeguard the international system or erode U.S. dominance? Or did Donald Trump accomplish that single-handedly? I'd like your thoughts. Does Australia act wisely by diverging and hosting Carney? Or does this undermine their U.S. partnership? Share below. I read every comment and value your perspective. If you're curious about developments when Carney arrives in Canberra and Trump's countermeasures, subscribe now. Conventional outlets hesitate to label this accurately. We don't. Keep following. This story continues unfolding.